Hi, welcome to Personality Hacker. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge. And today we're going to talk about the ESTP type in the Myers Briggs system, or in the Genius system, the sensation accuracy type. Now, we're not going to go too deep dive in this type. We're going to sort of do a riff on the personality type and sort of our impressions. Yeah. And I have some interesting impressions on this type because my father happens to be an ESTP in the Myers Briggs system.
That's right, he does, doesn't he?
Yeah. And so,
what's your impression then?
Yeah, I've kind of gotten an insight into this type that I think maybe isn't always shared by other people, especially if they're into Myers Briggs. I think we have a tendency to sort of overgeneralize this type. I mean, we do that with all the types, but I think we don't give ESTPs enough credit in a lot of different ways. And so I kind of want to talk about sort of how this type shows up and maybe some secrets about them that not everybody knows.
So let me just say kind of the classic, what do you call it? The
archetype of the ESTP?
Archetype or stereotype is
oh,
what I'm
yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
So stereotype, kind of this ultimate fighter, MMA fighter, you know, mixed martial artist that comes to the table. This is kind of the stereotype I think of when I think of the stereotype of ESTPs, or the athlete or the boxer or somebody that's very focused on, you know, really high intensity sports and things of this nature.
I was thinking of the guys from Jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's another stereotype.
Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably an ESTP.
Yeah, well, most of the guys on Jackass are probably ESTPs. And so I think we get this sense that they're just like out there to create havoc.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that so ESTPs lead with a process called sensation. And sensation is a learning process. It's all about picking up information in real time and really understanding how things are happening in the moment. Mm-hmm. And they use their senses to do that. There's more than 5. There's, you know, senses. We think of the basic standard 5 senses, but there's also like a sense of balance, sense of temperature, etc. Time, right? Yeah. And they're utilizing all of our sensory receptors in our bodies to figure out what's going on right here, right now. So they're very present and in the moment. And there's a sense about sensation that is tied to adrenaline. If you look at how sensation works, like when you're hooked up to an EEG and somebody's utilizing this process, it's called the tennis hop, which is sort of this constant in motion. Like a tennis player does a tennis hop so that no matter where the ball goes, they can already be sort of in motion and on trajectory to get to the ball. And the sensation brain works really similarly. It's got this tennis hop sort of thing going on, and it's always ready for the next adrenaline rush or what's the next interesting thing that's going to happen so that they can be responding to it and reacting to it in real time, like on a split second. So they tend to actually be really good athletes. Sensation people tend to be very good athletes. They tend to be really good at anything that requires like an instantaneous response.
I also think they also show up in a way that, I mean, they're people. Mm-hmm. They have a tendency to show up and be very effusive. People like to be around them. They're engaging. They tend to be like deal makers, or they show up in there's a lot of politicians I think are ESTPs.
Oh yeah.
Show up and people, I mean, in a genuine way, they're showing up and people like these types, these personality types of ESTPs.
I think it's because they have a devil may care attitude. Yeah. I think that's why we have the stereotyper of the Jackass, crew, because they've got this sort of devil may care and let's just see what will happen. And they marry the sensation process with their co-pilot called accuracy, which is all about information that's separated from an emotional component. So what's actually real? What can I know to be true data-wise that isn't incorporating any sort of emotional or social bias? And I think that's one of the reasons why that adrenaline piece combined with like what's true no matter what we want to think about it, like let's not really care what society says. I think that's why you get sort of the stereotype of the jackass person. But I think that's also why they're great deal makers. Like you said, like they show up and they're about the deal making for the adrenaline component, and they don't really care how it ends up. They're not really attached to the outcome. And so they end up being these great negotiators. They're fantastic lawyers. Yeah. And my dad, weirdly enough, was really into chemistry, right? Like they can make scientists as well. So they're really actually a lot more multifaceted than I think a lot of people give them credit for.
And I think that accuracy process you're talking about, that co-pilot that rounds out their sensation, makes them straight shooters. Like you kind of know where you stand.
Yeah.
There's no ambiguity. They tell it how it is. They just are straight shooters, and you don't have to wonder if they're actually thinking something different than what they're really thinking. They're just going to tell you their mind. And they're going to shoot straight.
Now, unfortunately, if they spend too much time, if you look at, we were talking about the driver and co-pilot of sensation and accuracy in the car model. If you look at the car model, their 10-year-old process is called harmony. And usually how it shows up for people of this type, and this might be where the stereotype of them being sort of that consummate fighter comes from, is that oftentimes they go to that 10-year-old process of harmony, which is about, its technical name is extroverted feeling. So even though it does very well with social things and connecting emotionally with other people, it's also about emotional expressiveness. So a lot of times they'll go to the 10-year-old process of extroverted feeling through anger. That is a lot of times the emotion they'll give themselves permission to exhibit. So if they don't sort of check themselves, they can get really sort of angry, right? They can have anger management issues and like kind of go to anger a lot because it's the emotion they'll give themselves permission to express. So it's really important for them to make sure that they're not going to that 10-year-old process too much, because that is also what has them checking in with how other people feel about what they're doing. And it's better for them to have the devil may care attitude, because that's what they bring to the world. They bring to the world that sort of not being married to the outcome and showing us what we can all do if we didn't care too much about other people's opinions. So if they slip into that 10-year-old process of caring too much about other people's opinions, and then they get angry about it, they don't actually show up in the best way possible. So it's really important for them to stay in that co-pilot process of accuracy.
Yeah. So if you've taken the personality test on the Personality Hacker website and you've come out as an ESTP or sensation accuracy, one of the things that we're going to recommend is that you get the premium content, because we really go into that accuracy process that Antonia is talking about. And just some easy to do, they're not complicated things, but some easy exercises, some thoughts about how to grow that accuracy process, which rounds you out as a person. It helps you really launch yourself on a personal development journey that starts with you and then starts to incorporate other frameworks and models. It's a great place to start.
So what is a secret? Are you about to ask me? What's the secret about ESTPs that not everybody knows?
I would say that, and we've actually talked about this before, I would say that one of the secrets is that they want emotional connection more than you'd think. I think that because of that accuracy process, that straight shooter process, it comes off sometimes cold and calculating in social settings.
Or harsh, maybe sometimes.
Even harsh, because you're telling truth as they see it. But I think there's that emotional connection that the ESTP person, that sensation accuracy person, really wants with another person. And oftentimes, because that's their 10-year-old process, like we talk about in the Genius System, it's something they don't understand fully, and sometimes they don't want to give themselves permission to show up in that way. And so I think that's something that most people don't realize about the ESTP.
Yeah, I think they're more sensitive than they let on. Yeah. I think other people's opinions actually do matter to them.
Oh, yeah.
I think a good reputation is important, and I do think that they really want that emotional compatibility and that emotional connectivity. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think ESTPs are actually bigger teddy bears than they would let on. So thank you very much for joining us on this riff on the ESTP type, or the sensation accuracy type in the Genius System.